meters. That's not the problem, but some of the gas stations are limited in how they can deal with people. This gas station, for instance, just stopped taking credit. It's now only taking cash, so that's forcing some people to keep going down the highway. Now, these are among the 80,000 evacuees from the city of Fort McMurray. Many of them aren't exactly sure where they're going to be going or what exactly they're leaving behind. There are reception centers that have been set up by the province, including a large one at Rexall Place in Edmonton, but also we're seeing in communities like this a lot of outpouring of support, a lot of people opening their homes. We're seeing communities here opening up their schools, creating basically ad hoc reception centers for evacuees. Here in Grassland, they've opened up the local school. People can stop for a break, they can stop for water, they can get Wi-Fi, they can just kind of gather themselves and try to get in contact with people that they may have left behind or people that may have gone to other parts of the province. As for when these people might be able to go back, well, right now the province is saying that's undetermined. They're still expecting the fires to be bad throughout the remainder of the day today, so many of these people, they don't know what they're leaving behind and they don't know when they're going to be getting back. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Grassland, Alberta.
Well, as you know, many of the workers in the Fort McMurray area, in fact, have roots on Canada's east coast. Colleen Jones went to the Halifax airport and spoke with an evacuee who managed to actually catch one of those last flights back to his hometown.
My son is out there running, looking after Diversified, and he's directing the buses, and he says it's terrible. And their buses are running steady trying to evacuate people, and he's coordinating it, and he's just waiting to get out himself.
Have you ever seen anything like this in your lifetime?
No. And I told my wife, I said, Fort Mac is going to be gone. She didn't believe me. I didn't believe me. But it is what I thought it was going to be.
Can you imagine going back there now?
No. I can imagine going back, yes, but I can't imagine what I'm going to see.
That's Colleen Jones in Halifax speaking with one of the 88,000 people. Just think of that number. All of them forced to flee that fire in Fort McMurray. Well, the man she was talking to, in fact, is a machinist who works in the Alberta oil patch. Fort McMurray is really at the heart of the Canadian oil sands industry. As we saw, he managed to make it back home to the East Coast, but many who were still there are now finding shelter at the work camps near the major production sites. It's part of the ongoing response by the energy giants that employ most of those evacuees. Jeannie Lee's been looking at this part of the story for us, so tell us what the companies are doing to respond.
Well, really, Diana, juggling several priorities, including making sure their employees are safe and offering refuge, and I'll talk about that a little more in a minute. But the other thing they have to monitor are those oil and gas installations that are pretty close to Fort McMurray. So far, the reports are that they are safe, those properties, but the National Energy Board, for example, says that it has sent an emergency management expert to the city as it monitors facilities that are under its watch. And here's one of several tweets that it sent out earlier today. Only one NEB regulated facility, a natural gas pipeline operated by TransCanada, is in the vicinity, and it is 25 kilometers away. But from what we saw yesterday, things just can escalate on a dime, and certainly vigilance is going to be the key priority here for a lot of these companies. And here is the latest from some of the big names that we know operate in the area. Suncor has its regional plant just about 25 kilometers north of Fort McMurray, so pretty close as well. It's reducing production. Doesn't say by how much, but it's doing this because it has to send non-essential staff away, obviously, to safety. Shell has shut down and evacuated its Albion Sands operation. That's 95 kilometers away from Fort McMurray. And those two companies and a couple of others are opening up their work camps to evacuees. They were packed in the boom times for oil, and now coming in handy, and we're seeing a glimpse of that from a tweet by Kim McDonald of the Weather Network, who was talking about her pregnant cousin yesterday fleeing the flames. She said, on a personal note, I'm relieved to hear that my pregnant cousin and her family are safe, adding that picture picture that we saw, 3 adults, 2 kids, and 3 pets are staying in that camp site tonight.
But she also makes the point, no water, and that's partly because of that boil water advisory that's now in place that makes sense when you consider the smoke and what's in it falling into every body of water in the area.
Right, and you know, the fact is the tens of thousands of layoffs that have happened in the industry is the reason why some of these places are actually available for the evacuees.
There are lots of companies around the country that have done well as a result of the best years in the oil patch and the boom that was Fort Mac for a long time. How are companies that aren't necessarily based there but really have profited from the explosion in oil there doing?
Well, we're looking at different companies and what is going on, and we decided to look at insurance, for example. A lot of insurers obviously will be very busy in the months ahead. We know it's too early to even begin to estimate the losses, but we asked the Insurance Bureau of Canada anyway, and it confirmed that it is much too soon to say, but that insurers are mobilized. And given the estimate that we've been hearing that 1,600 structures in Fort McMurray have already been destroyed, take a look at how this could end up being one of the costliest ever disasters, right up there in the record book. So we have Alberta floods of a few years ago, insurable losses of $1.7 billion, the 1998 ice storm right up there, and the Slave Lake fires of a few years ago, $700 million, and in that case, 400 structures were destroyed. And this, we're talking about 4 times as many, so yes. Busy days ahead for the insurance companies. They're already taking some claims that we're hearing, and a hotline has been set up for anyone who is immediately out of danger anyway and knows exactly what damages they're facing.
The natural gas pipeline that you mentioned at the beginning, 25K away is not very far away in the context of a fire like this, and even the residual heat. You look at those flames, you think about how hot it is. Years ago, I would cover forest fires in northern Manitoba, and it was amazing how you felt that heat almost before you could see the flames.
Way back, and how quickly did this just escalate? I went home yesterday, and it was just a voluntary evacuation of 3 neighborhoods. By the time I got home, mandatory for the whole city.
Let's talk about the markets very quickly.